Hey, thanks so much for tuning into the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth. We are continuing our theme on obedience, and I want to share a story with you found in 2 Chronicles chapter 25. Maybe a story that you're not too familiar with in the Bible. 2 Chronicles chapter 25, and if you read through if you read 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, there's a lot of kings, and usually it starts off with this king did so and so, and they did right in the eyes of the Lord, or they did evil in the eyes of the Lord. And listen to this, though. This is King Amaziah, king of Judah. Verse 2 of chapter 25 says this. He did right in the eyes of the Lord. That's all good, right? It doesn't stop there. He did right in the eyes of the Lord, but not wholeheartedly. Verse 2, chapter 25, 2 Chronicles. And maybe that is you today. Maybe you've committed your life to Christ. Maybe you've received the grace of God through Jesus Christ, receiving the forgiveness of your sins. But if you were to be completely honest with yourself, you would have to say, well, I'm a follower of Christ, but not wholeheartedly. If I really look at my actions, if I look at my priorities, if I really if I confront the facts, yeah, maybe I do sometimes, but not wholeheartedly. Or maybe I do it, but maybe I have the wrong motivation. And that is something that when it comes to obedience, see, God requires, He asks us, He commands us to really serve Him and serve Him only. He is a jealous God. Maybe you've heard that before. And He is. Why? Because He is the King of Kings. We can't serve two masters. We can't be in one day and out the next day. Like, He calls us to be Him, to be His followers, and that's it. I mean, just this past Sunday, we had Baptism Sunday, and that was this public declaration. I'm going to die to myself and live for Christ. That public declaration of that personal decision that those individuals made. And that's what baptism is all about wholeheartedly, unashamedly saying, I am for Christ and Christ alone. Well, this king right here, he goes off to battle, and he's not too confident in the odds, and so he's hiring all these men for talents, is what the Bible describes, and a man of God, a prophet. See, the Bible had prophets in the Old Testament, and they would be ones that would speak on behalf of God. And this prophet's like, hey, don't gather these men. The Lord's not with Israel right now. Like, let's not do that. So he actually doesn't do that, and he goes off and fights the Edomites, and guess what? He wins. Listen to this verse here in verse 9 of chapter 25. Amaziah asked the man of God, but what about all the 100 talents I paid for these Israelite troops? I mean, he's wondering, he's like, because the man of God said, hey, get rid of them. He's like, I already paid, for them. He's like, get rid of them. And then the man of God, the prophet, replied, the Lord can give you much more than that. I want you to pause there and think about that. Think about your pursuits. Think about all the things that you're striving to get or to achieve or to consume or to accumulate. God can provide you with much more than that. And if you continue on the story, he goes and he fights the Edomites. He gets, with a really less amount of men than the Edomite army. And guess what? He wins. He overtakes. But see, this is where the heart of the matter, because the king here, the king of Judah, Amaziah, what he does, he takes the gods of Edom, he brings them back, and he starts bowing down to these gods. Now listen to how the Lord responds to his behavior. He says in verse 14 says, when Amaziah returned from slaughtering the Edomites, he brought back the gods. He set them up as his own gods, bowing down to them and burned sacrifices to them. Verse 15, the anger of the Lord burned against Amaziah, and he sent a prophet to him who said, why do you consult these people's gods, which could not save their own people from your hand? I mean, it sounds pretty foolish, doesn't it? Well, think about all the foolish things that we do. See, right here, this right here is a book that is full of grace, full of love, and instructions, not to limit us, not to take away our fun, Not to, no, it's none of those things. See, whatever we can consume here, whatever we can accumulate here on this earth, God God can provide much more than that. So would we choose to obey? Would we choose to obey God wholeheartedly, not halfway? Hey, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth.